There once lived an Otsutsuki known as Shibai, who ascended to godhood, leaving his mortal remains on Boruto's home planet. These remains were somehow obtained by Amado, who used them in creating powerful cyborgs, and by the looks of it, they could become the next hashirama cells of the Narutoverse. They are the ultimate key to unlocking broken powers such as the Omnipotence. And this brings us to the question that could change everything about the story of Boruto. Could the Jougan be an outcome of Boruto absorbing the remains of Shibai? We have seen his counterpart Momoshiki absorb another Otsutsuki before. So what if in his journey of becoming the most powerful, Boruto had to soak up the corpse of an Otsutsuki god? Well, before figuring out the plausibility of this theory, we will need to understand the remains of Shibai and how they are going to be incorporated into the plot. I don't know if we should call it the carelessness of the author or a really smart move to save the big elephant for the future, but it was kinda odd for Konoha to not ask Amado some obvious questions after his confession, like how did he find the remains of Shibai? Where are they right now? Can he still use them in favor of the village? And what's the guarantee that he isn't scheming anything fishy? The Omnipotence twist happened shortly after the questioning of Amado, which made everyone forget about the secrets held by the scientist. They will eventually be revealed later in the story, but it's really strange that no one asked him about his Otsutsuki connection all these years. I think the story is setting up Shibai in a way similar to how Madara was being set up in Naruto. First he was introduced as a legend, and we ignored him thinking it's a thing of the past. Itachi was introduced as the closest to Madara, since he was the only one with the Mangekyo Sharingan, a feat that the legend himself had unlocked. This can be found in Shibai's case as well, since his tale is not being taken seriously at the moment, and just like the Mangekyo Sharingan, Aida is shown to possess the ultimate power of Shibai, which is the Omnipotence. Then we had Tobi, who was rumored to be Madara, but ended up as Obito. In case of Shibai, some Shinju could go after his remains, and once they consumed them, we would get to see the true nature of an Otsutsuki god in action. It's not even necessary for a Shinju to devour the remains of Shibai for this spectacle. The bug Shinju could simply devour on its instinctual target Aida, and we would still get to see the decoy powers of the Otsutsuki god, similar to how Obito stood as a dummy for the real deal, and just like how at the very end, Madara himself was revealed. The case of Shibai could be a bit similar once he is unveiled towards the end of the story. There have been theories of Kawaki's karma being the medium of bringing Shibai back to life, and the whole Akebi narrative is just diverting our mind from the real game of the scientist. Even Kawaki himself pointed out this possibility, which made Amado cry, since the karma was the only way to revive his daughter. Momoshiki had questioned the truthfulness of Amado by stating that there is no way for them to figure out whether he's lying or not. This was the first time when he gave his thoughts on some character whom he found suspicious. One of the reasons could be simply because he has access to the remains of an Otsutsuki god, something that a normal person would never obtain. Secondly, I believe Momoshiki knows the strategy of Amado to revive his daughter is realistically impossible. There is no point of fusing the DNA with the karma to bring someone back to life for a lot of reasons. First and foremost, the revived person would die again in a similar manner, since all genes are predestined according to Ishiki. Secondly, it would make more sense to just ask an Otsutsuki god to rewrite the destiny of a previously deceased person with Omnipotence. This means if Amado was given the chance to make a wish to Aida, he could simply desire Delta to have the memories of Akebi. But since he apparently had no idea about this, he continued with his own plans with no fear of the consequences. So how did he find the remains of Shibai Otsutsuki, and what was the need of using its DNA to modify Aida and Daemon? Going by what was revealed in the story, Jougan had apparently ordered to dispose the overpowered cyborgs since they were a threat to him. This means he was aware of Amado's experiments and what he is doing with the remains of Shibai. This takes us to the first theory, which implies that Jougan was the one who gave Amado the remains of Shibai, and all the experiments were done under his supervision. But we shouldn't forget the fact that Amado has betrayed Jougan, so there is no way he was fully honest towards him. Moreover, Code was modified with Ishiki's DNA, yet he surpassed Jougan in power. So maybe the monk had presumed the modification of other cyborgs was done by Amado from the karma or DNA of Ishiki or Otsutsuki. He could be completely unaware of Amado's possession of Shibai's remains and his secret experiments. This brings us to another point explaining the big brain tactics of Amado. The scientist literally undermined himself while doing the karma experiment for Jougan. As we know, hundreds of test subjects were killed due to the pressure of the trials led by Amado and Jougan. All of it was done to find the suitable vessel for Ishiki or Otsutsuki. However, when it comes to getting a vessel that was compatible with the DNA of an Otsutsuki god, Amado was able to find not one but two people, and both of them were siblings. Now, unless the Shibai experiment had also killed hundreds of children, making Aida and Daemon the lucky ones to survive, it's pretty clear clear that Amado nerfed himself while working with Jougan. One thing is clear that the Shibai side of Amado was held a secret from Jougan for obvious reasons. This means Aida and Daemon are the only clue for us to deduce the truth about Shibai's remains. If Amado had not created them to support Jougan, then it's clear that there was a greater reason behind their existence. The mysterious shape of their eyes connects them to the dojutsu of Boruto. Aida possesses a crescent, while Daemon's eyes are shaped like half moon. The fusion of them both takes the shape of a full moon, which is how the Jougan was depicted. This yet again indicates the Shibai connection of the pure eye, and I will get back to this in a moment. I think the answers that we are seeking can only be found by redefining the lore of Shibai, especially the part where it's mentioned that he ascended to a higher plane of existence. This part was doubted by Amado when he said Shibai could have been killed, and even Momoshiki said he no longer exists in this world. There was no mention of a higher plane from the mouth of Momoshiki, so I think there is something fishy with the ascension of Shibai. The tale of Amado implies that after being power hungry for centuries, Shibai took the Zen approach to become one with everything in the universe. But that's a bit unlikely to happen, since it would take away the essence from Shibai's character. Otsutsukis are creatures who go from one planet to another, consume chakra fruits, only to become more powerful in hopes of attaining godhood someday. Shibai, who had already become a god, scaled above almost everyone in his clan, making him the most supreme Otsutsuki to ever exist. Remember, the power of omnipotence was extracted from his mortal remains, which means he must have been way more powerful than anything in the universe. This puts a question mark to what made him abandon his body, and where does he reside at present? Well, what if it wasn't Shibai who discarded his body, rather it was the overwhelming energy that he couldn't control any further, which ended up in him getting consumed by his own powers. This brought a huge problem to one of the most powerful Otsutsuki members. He was helpless and couldn't do much to regain his original state, and that's when he found Amado. Now, before going any further, for this theory, we are assuming it was Jougan who introduced the remains of Shibai to the scientist. As every Otsutsuki had a spirit talk with someone in the story, what if Shibai had appeared in front of Amado behind Ishiki's back and promised him to revive his daughter if he is able to come back to his real form? Remember, Jougan had also promised to fulfill the wish of Amado, so why did he betray him and decided to help Shibai instead? Well, aside from the fact that Shibai was superior to Jougan, it was pretty clear that Ishiki would destroy this planet by sacrificing Boruto after achieving his true form. So it basically made no sense for Amado to get his daughter back when there won't be a world for them to live in. So Shibai's treaty was more credible as well as favorable to the scientist. This explains why he was doing experiments on children behind Jougan's back. He tried implanting the DNA of Shibai inside Aida and Daemon, which did not bring back the deity but ended up giving them some really broken abilities. The Karma plan must be the final thing that popped in Amado's mind for the sake of resurrecting Shibai. And it actually makes sense if you think about it. The Karma is shown to have repaired the broken organs of an individual, and it even has impressive healing functionality. So if Amado puts the DNA of Shibai into the artificial Karma of Kawaki, it should automatically recreate the deity's body parts once it enters a suitable vessel. So Kawaki's theory of his Karma having the DNA of an Otsutsuki could actually be true. Another reason for why I think the Ascension theory is not free from flaws has something to do with omnipotence. Upon turning into an Otsutsuki god, Shibai could have written or erased the fate of as many creatures as he wanted, but leaving his body to enter the Zen mode could have even risked the loss of the Omni powers that took him centuries to acquire. That's why deliberately discarding the most powerful body of the universe is the most stupid thing one can do. The power overload theory makes a lot more sense and even explains the desperation of Amado when it comes to his plans. At the end, he is still doing it for his daughter, so the emotional angle of his endeavor remains the same. There is another theory explaining how Amado might be Shibai himself, but before going there, let's cover the main question that was raised in the beginning of this video. Has Boruto absorbed the remains of Shibai for the sake of awakening the Jougan, or is there something even more crazier on its way? Well, the Karma must be able to absorb the body of another Otsutsuki, especially if it's lifeless. Momoshiki was able to fuse with Kinshiki, and it heavily altered his physical appearance. But when it comes to the remains of Shibai, I don't think it will cause any type of visual difference to the consumer, simply because Aida and Daemon also did not show any major alteration on their exterior. But one thing did change in both the siblings, and it was the shape of their eyes. Aida obtained the Senringan, the crescent eye, while Daemon ended up with half moon shaped lens. And since Boruto is also seen with the full moon shaped eye, it's very likely that he did somehow came in contact with the DNA of Shibai or Otsutsuki. His Karma could be the medium of absorbing the god godly remains, and chances are something like that has happened prior to the prologue fight, and Kawaki is completely unaware of any such incident, simply because he wouldn't have taken the risk of fighting Boruto if he knew he has acquired the power of an Otsutsuki god. If we go back to the Madara analogy that I mentioned in the beginning of this video, then Sasuke is perfectly parallel to Boruto in this comparison. Just like how the master unlocked the renowned power of Madara Uchiha after the death of his brother, the student could also acquire the Jougan after defeating the Shinju, who possesses the power of Shibai. Moreover, the remains of the Otsutsuki god could become a power jackpot for every major character in the story. It will automatically grant the absorber some god level feats, which would have taken centuries to obtain. In other words, it's like a shortcut to godhood, a vital item which could literally start space wars in the galaxy. The only reason Otsutsukis would be so desperate for these remains is because they can absorb them to get more powerful. This again reinstates the fact that it's not impossible for Boruto to use the karma and incorporate the godly DNA into his body. This makes Amado the gatekeeper to the most supreme material of the cosmos, the object that single-handedly determines the future of the universe. Now the question remains, how will the Shinju find out about the existence of such items? Well, there are two plot points which hint at the monsters shifting their focus to Shibai's remains at some point in the story. Firstly, they all are connected due to the singularity that they have obtained from the Telltale. Secondly, the bug Shinju, who's the most agonizing of them all, has made Aida his instinctual target. If he hypothetically consumes her, it will automatically grant him all the knowledge held by the cyborg girl, which includes the secret of Shibai's remains, which is known to Amado. And since they all will get to know what bug has acquired, they could jointly abandon all their present plans just to kidnap Amado and take hold of Shibai's remains. This will leave the scientist with no choice but to escape to Boruto, the only reliable warrior who could save him. In exchange of providing him protection, Amado could let Boruto absorb the godly material to unlock the pure-eyed Jougan. Now you may be thinking, if Amado ends up in Boruto's team for a while, who's gonna help Kawaki to get a power boost as well as the new outfit? Well, I hope you click the subscribe button, cause the bar of the theories from this point is about to touch the sky. If you take a closer look at Kawaki's time skip outfit, it resembles the attire worn by Code. Now you may have heard their alliance or fusion theory 1,000 times, but today I will tell you an angle which adds a lot of sense to them. I think Kawaki is not using the full power of Ishiki at this moment. Same is the case with Code, who has been given the white karma, but the fact that it has Ishiki's DNA can't be ignored. The only reason both of them have been reduced to mere punching bags is because of the abnormalities in their karma. The seal possessed by Kawaki is a mere weapon and was mainly created to revive another Otsutsuki. Code's karma, on the other hand, doesn't amp up the same way real karma does. His limiters were hyped so much, but even after getting them removed, he was attacked with L's after L's. As Ishiki himself said, destiny is predetermined by genetics. Then why is the legacy of the people who wield his power so miserable? Well, I think Kawaki and Code have been granted some portion of Ishiki's power, and unless one of them completes the other, they won't be able to utilize the true essence of Ishiki or Otsutsuki. And judging by the flash forward, Code has apparently accepted his inferiority to Kawaki, which is what led to this outfit change of the red karma wielder. He has apparently absorbed Code, or I should say encoded the white karma user into his body to unlock the true nature of Ishiki's powers. There is no other way for him to become so powerful, and by the looks of it, the future fight between him and Boruto is literally Ishiki versus the wielder of Shibai's eye. It would be really interesting to see how this battle ends up in an unbiased manner. Moving on to our final theory, what if Amado himself is Shibai or Otsutsuki? It could be that Shibai left his mortal remains behind to get reincarnated as a human being. He must have realized that being a god is boring, and consuming planets after planets for the sake of power also becomes monotonous after some period of time. So he decides to be reborn as a human being, lives a normal life, and conceives a daughter whom he truly loves. This life must be the most enjoyable and fulfilling thing that Shibai could experience. However, some tragedy struck on him when his daughter Akebi died, which quickly turned his life into sadness and sorrows. In his attempt to bring his daughter back, he used all his otherworldly knowledge into creating cyborgs and clones with his own remains. Soon he realizes the importance of karma to channel his true powers just to bring his daughter back to life. He possesses the knowledge that no one has, from how to kill an Otsutsuki to creating the most broken cyborgs that humanity has witnessed. It's not common to have access to the flesh of an ascended Otsutsuki god. The deity could have manipulated the whole universe with Omnipotence to conceal his remains deep within the cosmos. But since Amado has obtained them, along with the remains of Jiraiya, that even Madara, Kabuto and Obito couldn't find, it's not out of question for the scientist to be the most supreme deity of the verse in disguise. Aside from the remains of Shibai, there are more questions like who destroyed Konoha and the divine fate of Boruto. You can find the answers in these videos. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I will see you next time.